Welcome everyone. We are going to talk about the student experience in Writable. This is a simple steps for successful student experience. I am Kara Gann. I work for Writable as the District and Customer Engagement Director, and Becky Mack is the Director of Customer Success. So we are delighted that you're taking time to be with us. So the one thing that I do want to point out in the slide, and we won't read this right now, is Writable is developed on research. This is the actual paper that Dr. Troy Hicks provided for us. He has a new book out, and he is one of the advisors of Writable. And so do feel free to click on this link to learn more about writing proficiency and the research on practice. Our agenda today is we want to keep you in a flow of what it would look like to be a student. So we've got steps for students to access their assignment and begin writing. So we're going to do a quick overview of what that looks like, jump into showing you the AI tools, talk about self and peer review that students have, and then steps for students to revise their work using feedback from their peers and teachers. So we're going to take you through that loop. I think it's important to note that you don't do everything at once. You don't have to. This is a stepping project so that you can have them writing and then getting feedback and then having their peers give them feedback, etc. So we will talk through that. So I think we want to get started, Becky, with just a quick overview, and I'm going to start the video and you are going to talk.
Yeah, so 1 minute, Kara, if you could just pause it for 1 sec. Thanks. So as Karen mentioned, we will be in the slide deck for a little portion of our time together, which we are now. We do have a video that we're going to start and show you and talk through. And the reason why I wanted to use this clip at the beginning is we did build in this slide deck to include different video components so that at your fingertips, you have video tutorials that you can go back to at any time. This will be the only video we share during our time together. But like I said, in the slide deck, there's video tutorials on the different components of the student's experience relative to how do they do peer review, how do they revise, how do they access and use some of the AI tools, right? So really just wanted to make sure that you understood that these were built into the slide deck for your use. And then once we're done here, we'll spend a little bit more time in the slide deck, and then we're really going to spend a lot of the time in the app hands-on. So as Karen mentioned, use the chat, come off, to ask questions or the Q&A. We'd love any participation that we can get. So Kara, sorry, you were doing so nicely and I interrupted your flow, but if you want to go ahead and hit play, I can speak to the video. So what you'll see here is the student is accessing their assignment by clicking on the assignment. And then here is what we call their dashboard. Clicking anywhere in the read and write box brings them into the assignment. That highlighted area was the prompt. They're looking right now at the reading. They can do some highlighting of the reading. They could put notes in that they can store and bring into their writing at a later time. They're clicking on that blue tab, that check and submit, to kind of open up and just look at, I really want to understand what the expectations are. So they did a quick view of the rubric there for the planner, for the writing. Here, if they need text to speech options, they have that by clicking that speaker icon. And right now what you see in the example is the student doing the student submission, clicking back on that check and submit tab. They're looking at those rubric items. They're going to go ahead and click submit on their writing portion and then double checking their graphic organizer planner that they had. So that was really fast and really quick, but we'll really show you those steps again live in the app. But this is a nice video if you wanted to use that with students and share it with them so they can see the functionality of Writable. You can certainly use these clips for that as well.
And Becky, you talked over this. However, these videos do have a voice. So don't feel like if you use it with students that you have to be able to talk as eloquently as Becky did on what was happening. There is a person talking that you can play for your students.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so basically, I'm going to spend just a couple seconds to stop slowly on this. So this is what the student dashboard looks like. This is the assignment prompt at the top, the read and write on the left. They can click anywhere in those squares. The review, same thing. If there's a self-review, a peer review, they can go through that. It also shows what they've written, what they've reviewed, and their overall progress.
And Kara, I want to pause there and I want to ask, pretending to be a new teacher with Writable, how would I explain to my students, how do they get to that spot, right? So we've had previous webinars, but there's a variety of ways that the students can access that assignment, right? So can you just quickly give an overview, just what those ways are? I'll start with, they can log directly in to writable.com.
Yep, they can log directly into Writable.com. Once they log into Writable.com, it will bring them into a main screen with all of their teachers that have assigned assignments, and then they would select the assignment that they need to work on. So they have like a dashboard that's prior to this dashboard. If you looked at the picture, you can see assignments. When they are in that assignments view, it will give them all of the assignments that are in Writable by all the teachers. Next way, Becky.
Well, and then the next way is really pretty similar. If you're using an LMS, such as Google Classroom, Schoology, or Canvas, the students, they're able to access the assignment from those LMSs. And then when they do so, it brings them in, then they access their dashboard this way, right? So that's kind of the behind the scenes, depending on how you set that up, that takes place before the student gets to this screen.
And I think it's important that we let you know that regardless of whether the student started the assignment in their LMS or whether they started in Writable, if you are connected to an LMS, the grades will pass back for Schoology, Canvas, and Google Classroom. So the students have the ability to write in that area, either starting from Writable or starting from their LMS. It doesn't matter as long as they're just writing on that assignment. As I said in the previous one, that you can click on the square. So notice this whole area is active. So the students don't have to click in a certain space. They can click on the whole area. Once they log in, they have the reading on the left-hand side. Now, because they're supposed to start with writing, you don't necessarily get the reading at the first. On this one, you can notice that they had the reading. You can go back to reading. You can toggle. In the video, it showed that there was a submit on the right-hand side. This is how they move back and forth, back to reading and then submitting. They also have the prompt here at the top, and then where they do their writing. Again, this has 3 different sections for them to look at the expectations. This would be a checklist for them to review. As you can see, the prompt is the one they're on. If they click on multiple choice questions or my submission, they'll have other options. Becky, anything you want to add about this view?
No, I think that's great.
Okay, on this view, you can see that in the reading, the student has the ability to highlight. They also have the ability to write comments. So as you can see, this is pink. It says point of view. Once they have clicked off of that into another area, that goes into a shared space. So if they choose to, they can use that information that they've selected or typed for a comment in their writing. I think it's important too, something that you can see on this screen, Becky, that I want to point out is in the right-hand corner, do you see the little bell with the 4 up on the top? Do you want to share with them, Becky, kind of what that bell means and why there's a 4 there?
Yeah, I think it'll make more sense to everyone once we get into the app and you can see that the student has done a peer review or has gotten some feedback from a teacher. However, that bell notification, when you see that it has a number of messages, that's exactly what they are. They're messages. So notifications saying, hey, teacher is giving you feedback or a peer is giving you feedback. And that teacher feedback could be live feedback, could be the teacher could be looking at student work while they're actually working on it, just like if they were standing over them in class. Or again, it could be after hours when they're sitting down to look at student work, give feedback. And again, also peer feedback notifications appear there as well. So if a student clicked on that, they could jump into revisions and see the comments from that bell. And we'll take a deeper look at that when we're live in the app.
Thanks, Becky. I just thought it was nice to see it in that picture because it's a real easy for it to be overlooked. Okay, the video also showed how you can select what you'd like to have read to them. Not only is it the prompt, but it also can read the student's writing. And we recommend, and I have a lot of teachers who have commented that when the student goes back and has the system read their writing back to them, they start to recognize areas where they need to have different words added, because as we know, sometimes when we read our own writing, we fill in the gaps naturally because we know what we wanted to say, not necessarily what we did say. And so let's go to the next one for the sake of time. Becky, I'm going to move forward. The platform also has the ability to change into Spanish on the shells of it. Now, the assignments will still stay in English. However, the text will, if you can take a look at the image, you'll see that the main texts are converted into Spanish. You certainly could add Spanish content into the assignment, but if the assignment was written in English, then the assignment would stay in English, but the navigation would move to Spanish. So that's how you travel back and forth between both of those. And then the last thing that I'm going to cover before we actually jump into the app is that in the editing tool, you have the ability to add images. You have the ability to create and add videos, either links or actual videos that are inside the app. The students have the ability to print. One of my favorite things is the version history. So as a student, I can click on the clock and I have the ability to see how all my different edits, all my different versions, and there's no save in Writable. So by doing the version history, this is where I can go back and restore versions. So some of you might be familiar with that. And then of course, the grammar check button.
So Kara, while I get set up here, I want to address one question that came in to the chat, and that was about the students having the ability to actually upload a recording or whatever, their own recording or video, whatever that may be. So yes, and there's one of two ways which they can do that. And when I'm live in the app, I'll actually show you that here. They can upload something that they may have recorded on, let's say, a screencast or some other device, app, whatever that may be. And then they actually have the ability to record right from Writable. So I can show you what that looks like here in a few minutes. But what I am going to show you now, I'm going to start with what we call our AI, artificial intelligence supports that give teachers AI insights into student writing. So our AI insights, we have a reading in this assignment that has a reading for Grammar Aid, Revision Aid, and Originality Checker. So those are the three types of AI supports that as a teacher, you can turn on at any time in the assignment cycle for students. Now, the Grammar Aid is default to on. However, when you're assigning an assignment, these options are available. So you can change if you don't want Grammar Aid on for students, then you can uncheck that and it will not be on for students, but it always runs in the background. So the teacher, as a teacher, you can get the insight into how is the student doing relative to grammar in their writing. So I'm going to start with Grammar Aid and then work my way through the other AI insight supports. So Grammar Aid, you see here, really helps support student writing in three areas: grammar, spelling, and syntax. So it is color-coded based on the type of error or consideration, suggestion providing for the student. So here, the blue represents, believe the blue is our, and we have it laid out in our slide deck, Kara. So the blue, the red is spelling. So when I hover over that, I know the red is spelling. And I believe that the blue color is for grammar error. So here it's telling me I'm missing capital at the start. So I'll go ahead and click on that and fix that. And I don't have any yellow in this particular one. And the yellow is for syntax. Now, I do believe that some of the errors that will come up will actually have a tutorial or a video. So that way, if the student needs additional help with what does that mean? What does passive voice mean? I hear that a lot when I run grammar check. And if you're not sure what that means, then it will provide a little tutorial for you. So as you can see, I keep hovering over and it will tell me what the mistake may be. Here it thinks that I'm just missing punctuation, but I actually believe I spelled my word wrong there and I'm missing punctuation. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. So now you'll notice that that the grammar aid has been checked. So I don't have any other errors right now. So all those colors went away. If I going to just do a few things here just to kind of point out some of those features that Kara showed you really quick. She did mention that, you know what, Writable doesn't have a save feature for students, right? Because it's always saving. They don't ever have to hit a save button. So that's what we mean by that. And if I click on this version history, which we also like to call the dog ate my homework, because sometimes students will say, I did it. Why is it not there? Why is it not there? And you can ask them to click on that clock and say, oh, well, if you deleted it on accident, we can just restore it to your very first, version. So if I restore it to version 1, you can see my mistakes come back, right? So I'm going to go ahead. In that short amount of time, I had 8 versions that I went through that it saved, right? So you can revert back to any of those at any time. Students can. So it's somewhat not, it's not something that jumps out at students, right? Because they have to click on those dots there to get access to that. So I just wanted to point that out. Next, I want to talk about revision aid. So revision aid is kind of like the guide on the side, the coach that can give really quick, immediate feedback. Again, as a teacher, you can turn this on at any point in the assignment cycle if you want to use it at all. We have a lot of assignments that have revision aid configured and already set up, ready to go. Or if you make your own, super simple, using our assignment wizard to incorporate revision aid into it. So revision aid kind of gives some guidance on, the structure of the assignment. So how a student would run their revision aid is by clicking on that revision aid button. And when they see a colored star, they think, okay, red, think stoplights. I better stop, think, take a moment and see what this feedback is. By clicking on the star, they get a little bit more detail, but every time they click on the sentence, they'll get even more detailed information for them to take a look at and consider. And if they wanted to make some changes, some revisions before they submitted their paper, because of this quick revision aid check, they certainly could. So
So Becky, I
That
want to
is revision aid. So yeah, Kara, what do you want to add there?
I just wanted to add on that, we talked at the very beginning about that research around feedback and how important that is. And it's really difficult for the teacher to be right there giving that type of feedback. So revision aid is one of those tools that really helps the student when they're getting ready and they're writing and they're thinking about their writing. And it's very popular, especially in the informative genre. That's a great place that you can use it. Can you turn off revision aid? It was not helpful when writing a short story. Oh my gosh, Becky, that's a great question, and definitely can be turned off. So it's a setting that is teacher controls.
Yeah, so we can show that at the end. We can switch to the teacher side, but revision aid is not on by default. As a teacher, you would have to select that setting that you want it to be on for students in their writing. So we can take a look at that here at the end. I want to jump in and take a look at the last AI support originality checker, which is really checking for original work, authenticity, and plagiarism, right? So again, if you wanted to have that on at any point in the assignment, you turn that on. If a student is able to use that and it's active, they would click on originality check, just like I did. You can see it's running up there at the top. And then it will let the students know. So if I click on open that up, and it will tell me that there's some similarity to something found on the internet, and it explains what source that is. So again, this is information that's available for the teacher, for the student, and as a teacher, it's your choice if you want to give students the ability to use this in their writing. As a teacher, you could choose to just see it on your end and not have that available for students. So any other questions, Kara, for the AI supports?
I don't see anything in chat, but we certainly can wait for a second to see if anybody else has anything. Again, Becky, what you did say is that the teacher has the ability to turn things on and off for the students. However, on the teacher side, you can actually see the scoring without having the student see it. So I think that's a really nice feature. All right, we're going to go into a couple more feedback methods now.
Yeah, so this particular assignment had a self-review for the student to do, and it also had some peer reviews assigned to it. So as you can see on the dashboard, you can see the statistics that the student has for their completion toward an assignment. So they have 100% completion toward writing and responding to the prompt. If we look on the other side, the review side, we can see that we have some reviews that we need to do. When I open this up, because I have not done my own self-review, I submitted my work, but I didn't do a self-review, which we really hope our students do those self-reviews as soon as possible when they submit the work. But in this case, that will come up first. The student has to do their self-review before they can do peer reviews. So now you'll notice that the rubric statements have proficiency levels with them and statements correlated to those levels, right? So in terms of including a clear thesis and explaining, the focus throughout the writing, you can, as the student doing my self-review, I'm going to decide what I think that would be. They can use some of our sentence stems. They can write their own. And I'm just going to go ahead and hover over and give myself some fake feedback. Then I submitted my self-review. I can take a look and see that there as the student, but now I want to go ahead and dig into my peer reviews. So up here, these are the tools that the student has the ability to advance to the next peer review. So they could just click on this arrow here and it would bring them into the next peer review that they need to do. Peer reviews are anonymous, right? However, if for some reason they did their self-review, they walked away, closed out of the computer, needed to come back later, they can come back in and they can pull up and here they have another peer review to do. They have the ability, just like a teacher does, to highlight in the writing. They can make a comment. They can tie that to the rubric, or they don't, they don't have to. It's really, their preference. I'm just going to put a few things in here just to get it done.
And Becky, while you're doing that, I want to add that the peer review is anonymous, but the teacher has the ability to see all of the students that have reviewed each of the papers. And there's actually a place in the teacher grading stack that'll show if a peer disagrees. So if there's a lot of difference between two peer reviews, the teacher has that ability to just look through those too. So very helpful. The only way that peers could know who is doing the writing is if they identified themselves in the writing.
Yeah. Thanks, Kara. Those are really great points to bring up. So the last thing that I wanted to show, so we really quickly walked through and showed you the different AI tools, how to do a self-review and a peer review pretty quickly. Now we would be revisions. So revisions, important. We really want to encourage those as part of the writing process. So if peers took time to do a peer review and teacher gave feedback, then we really want to make sure students have the ability to act on it. Again, see up here, I have these notifications, right? So I could access any of these, that spot in the paper by clicking any of these. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and just go in from the dashboard. And I want to take a look at, what the feedback is from my teacher. So here I can see that she's giving me feedback. She's, filled out the proficiency levels there. And there looks like I have a few areas that I need to go ahead and improve on. So if I click revise, that's the magic button that allows the student to go ahead and go back in. As you can see, this student did not take advantage of the grammar aids. So we'll do that now. And all right. Here's a syntax error, I believe. And I'm just taking a few sentences out just to pretend like I did some revisions here. And when the student feels that they have done revisions based on the comments, they'll go ahead and hit submit revision. And I'm going to click next. And now it's going to say, which comments did you address, right? So we gave you feedback, the teacher gave you feedback, which comments did you address in this revision? So I'll pretend like I addressed 2 and I will submit. And then now it's asking me to do my self-review. So as a student, I could go back in and do my self-review. And I'll just say yes to those and submit that. So that is a really quick look at the revision from the student standpoint. But I really just wanted to show really quickly from the teacher point of view, if I were going to assign an assignment, then this is where you would enable those student support, such as revision aid, originality checker, and grammar aid. So if you don't want revision aid on for students, just make sure it's not checked. The default is off, but if for some reason, that's just a great way to just double check. And then peer review, this is again, it defaults to 3, but maybe you want to set that lower just so you can ensure that students have at least one peer review that they're able to work on. So generally I, might move that down to 1 or 2 when we first start working with students on peer review. But again, that's teacher choice there. So this is where you would select all of those settings that help students grow as writers, to get better feedback, to do revisions and feel motivated when doing so.
Thank you, Becky. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with a couple closing tips for us. So what we put together for you on this slide deck, and maybe we could put that back in the chat for those people that might have joined since we originally put it up there, is that inside Writable, there's also a piece called Assign to Me. So as Becky showed, you could assign to your class. There's also a class called Assign to Me. This gives you the ability to actually model all of these pieces as a student for your student. We also recommend, and I mentioned this earlier, is to start small. You can build on all of those settings that Becky showed. So you can just have them do a self-review before you move into the peer review. Of course, we put them all on top of it so that we can show you everything in one small area of time. However, as the students continue to use Writable and become more mature in their writing, certainly use them as much as you feel comfortable with it. The self-review and peer review features, it's really important that students slow down and reflect. The self-review, a lot of students turn in their work. They don't even hardly want to proofread it. I know a lot of my own children are that way. So that allows them to think, did I really meet the objectives of the rubric? The peer review gives them the chance to read other other writings from their peers. So that again is a really good exercise for them. We have the comment stems in there because we know that quality comments also improve writing. So it's really important that you talk to them about the comment stems and that they use them, and then you use them. And then expose students to the sample writing, because the more that we show them writing, the better that their writing does become. This is the direction for how you would assign to me. So again, Becky showed you where you would assign to your class. It's just one of the classes in your settings. We have online chat for you, the chat with us. This is a live chat. Every teacher has the ability to do that. It's behind the question mark up next to your initials. It also has all of our support documents. So if you have questions about any of these items, they're in here. Much that we put videos in the slides. However, there are also other videos that are in the deck. You can also email support@writable.com. So if you find that you have a question and when you click chat with us, you notice it's 11 o'clock at night, which we may not be working, then an email will work and they'll get to you first thing in the morning. All of the videos are posted at writable.com/academy. And we thank you so much for being here with us. And you have the resources for you. And of course, you have Writable.
Awesome. Kara, thank you. And thank you for everyone for joining. And we hope to see you soon, and have a great night.